Manchester United 4, Real Sociedad nil in what was a very one-sided match tonight. To my surprise as well, I really thought this game was going to be closer. I'm StattoJoe. You're a legend for watching this video, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like. I would really, really appreciate it. I'm just going to talk about the Europa League matches, the early games today, with that involved the three Premier League teams. Full transparency from me though, I only watched the Manchester United game, mainly because it was the game to me that I thought was going to be the closest. I certainly thought the other two games would be more one-sided. Certainly the Leicester game was a result that I wasn't expecting. And this was also a result I wasn't expecting. I actually thought this was going to be more like a 1-0 or a 1-1, just because Sociedad aren't on bad form. They're fifth in the La Liga. So, it's a game of two teams who are doing relatively well in the league. Both teams are pushing for top four in their respective leagues. Certainly, United would consider themselves close to being title challengers, but with City running away with things, could you really call them that? Not too sure. So yeah, overall, a surprising result, a surprisingly one-sided game. Certainly, if we look at the attack momentum meter, which if you've watched some of my stuff before, you know that I love this thing. Um, you can see actually that there's large periods of the game that United dominated the ball. There was some spells for Sociedad, but nothing that really, for me, felt threatening. I didn't really feel like Dean Henderson had too much to do. And getting a clean sheet for him is always going to be a good thing, especially in his development as a goalkeeper at United. Player performances, nothing really stood out from a Sociedad performance. Januzaj being their best player. I hadn't even realised he played for them, so when I saw him, I was quite surprised. And when we look at the United team, Bruno Fernandes with a 9 out of 10, Daniel James getting a good performance in, which can only do his confidence the world of good. I would think that Daniel James will be leaving in the summer. I don't know why he would stay. I don't really know what the point would be. He could go and play for a mid-table club, someone like a Villa or a West Ham, or maybe come to Newcastle if we're still in the Premier League. Wouldn't mind that. But yeah, I thought decent performance from their attacking, and defensively they didn't really have much to do. If we just look at the stats for a second and just see how the game sort of played out, Sociedad with more of the ball, but didn't really do much. You can see the difference in passes. There's only 200 passes more between the two sides, but like United were so effective on the ball. I actually certainly felt when Amad Diallo came on, he was electric with the ball. Some of the tricks he was doing were class. He didn't look out of place at all. Total shots though, 13-8, which would suggest quite even. But when you look at shots on target, 10 of United's 13 shots were on target, with Sociedad only managing 2, and United had 8 big chances. Sociedad had none, and that's really where you can see the reflection of the result in the stats. A lot of things I look at in this channel is all about, do the stats reflect the result of the game? And I think the answer is always, it depends what stat you look at. And certainly in this case, there are plenty of stats that would suggest that the scoreline was maybe strange. But when you look at big chances and counterattacks and things, you can sort of understand that actually 4-0 was probably a fair enough result. Shots inside the box, they had 10 shots inside the box of their 13. Overall, it was a great performance for United, and it'll be great for the squad in terms of when they play this game next week, they can rest a whole pile of their first team players because they're not under too much pressure, you wouldn't think. Although we do have memories, of course, Barcelona's come back against PSG in the Champions League, so it's not exactly there for United yet. They need to get it over the line, but you would think that they should be okay. The second game that I want to look at is Tottenham against Wolfsburg, not to be confused with Wolfsburg, of course. And you can see there, look at this. It's just all Tottenham, which isn't a surprise. The reason I didn't watch this game was because I thought it would just be a very one-sided match. And, it's nice to be right. For a change, my Six Nations predictions have been so ropey, and I was so confident with them, but I'll be back with that tomorrow just to talk about the Six Nations. But yeah, so we look at this game. Quality performance for Gareth Bale, which is great. I always felt I've been feeling bad for him this season. I do think he has more to offer. He just hasn't been given the opportunity to. So a goal and assist for him is not a bad takeaway from this game. But overall, it just seems that the performance in general was rather average. There were some players getting above 7.5. There was only one in the Wolfsburger team. If we look at the subs, Lamela had a good performance, which is decent as well. And then if we look at the stats, yeah, it just supports the result really, doesn't it? 62% to 38% possession, 20 shots to 9, equal big chances, interestingly. But Spurs scored all of theirs, and Wolfsburger missed 2 of them. Hit the post twice. Oh my! So this game maybe was closer or could have been closer. And yeah, passing dominated, and the good passing accuracy there, 86%. Not good enough really for Wolfsburger here. And yeah, overall, probably the stats would reflect what you'd expect from this game. Again, the same applies for Spurs, and that next week they can maybe rest some players for the return fixture at the London Stadium. And then finally, the last game that I just want to have a quick look at is Slavia Praha versus Leicester City, which was 0-0. Now, I don't know anything about Slavia Praha. I don't know, would they be considered good, or should have been an easy win for Leicester? And a 0-0 result, I'm surprised at personally. And even when you look at this attack momentum meter, the second half was pretty much entirely dominated by Praha. That's interesting. So Leicester maybe did well to hang on. Um, let's look at the player ratings overall. Decent performances all around from the Slavia Praha players, actually. So fair enough. And average to a good performance from StattoJoe and Kasper Schmeichel. So probably reflects that actually Praha gave this game a good go. Let's look at the stats. Yeah. Attacking wise, yeah, Slavia Praha did dominate then. And with possession being relatively equal, you can see, I wonder what the second half was like. Oh, right, yeah. So 6-1 on shots and everything. Interesting. So this is a game where I would have actually expected Leicester to have done better, but just looking at the stats, it seems that it was actually they did well. They had a 0-0 result, which is interesting. It means next week they need to go for it, don't they? They need to take the game to them next week. They need to make sure they don't concede next week as well, because then they need to score 1 goal. But obviously, you can't go in with that mentality in football. So they were just my reactions to the games. The Europa League's a weird one because I feel like when it's so early on, it's difficult to be fully invested, especially when you're neutral. And whenever a lot of these teams are playing teams that you'd never heard of, it does become difficult. Overall, decent results for the English teams. Um, Probably disappointing from a Leicester perspective, but at least they didn't lose. So it's it's a one-legged fixture now, really. And for United and Spurs, they should be cruising through the last 16, which is no surprise. So they were my thoughts. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I would really love to hear from you. And I just want to put this out there. I'm maybe thinking of starting a podcast, and I would love to hear your thoughts. So if you would listen to a podcast, it would be half an hour a week with maybe a guest every week, and we would just talk about the main headlines from the week before. Just let me know in the comments if that's something that interests you. I'd really love to hear. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, give a like. We're on the road to 50 subs, and I'd really love you to join me, and I would really appreciate that. And tomorrow will be a Six Nations roundup of last week's fixtures, so don't miss that.